Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah and the Ark, all these stories.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, obviously, the Noah story is inside of the epic.
Something is happening deep beneath the rugged mountains of Turkey that is shaking both science and faith to their core. Hidden under a massive boat-shaped mound near Mount Ararat, scientists have uncovered something that defies nature itself. Petrified beams, symmetrical decks, sealed chambers, and metallic echoes locked under tons of ancient rock. Is this truly the lost Ark of Noah, or a dangerous revelation that threatens to rewrite both scripture and history? What lies beneath may terrify even the most skeptical minds. Since ancient times, people have told the story of a massive flood that once covered the earth. The Bible's book of Genesis tells how God, seeing the wickedness of mankind, sent a flood to wipe out all living things. But one man, Noah, found favor with God. He was instructed to build a large ark to save his family and pairs of every animal on earth. When the rain fell and the waters rose, Noah's ark floated above the destruction. After many days, the floodwaters finally receded, and the ark came to rest somewhere in the mountains of Ararat. Hold on a minute. If you have not subscribed to this channel, do well to subscribe, like, comment, and share videos of this channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. For thousands of years, people have wondered where this enormous vessel could have landed. The Bible points to the mountains of Ararat, a range located in present-day eastern Turkey. Mount Ararat itself rises sharply into the sky, its snowy peak often hidden in clouds. For believers, this mountain has always carried a sense of mystery and sacred importance. Could Noah's Ark still lie hidden somewhere on these slopes? Over the centuries, explorers, adventurers, and even emperors have sent expeditions to search for the Ark. Some have claimed to see wooden beams sticking out of glaciers, while others have reported strange shapes hidden beneath the snow. But no one could ever provide enough solid proof to settle the question once and for all. Then, in 1959, a Turkish army captain named İlhan Durupinar made a discovery that reignited global interest. While reviewing aerial photographs taken during a military survey, Durupinar noticed something strange in the landscape. In a remote valley, not far from Mount Ararat, was a formation that looked like a giant ship frozen into the earth. It was shaped like a long, rounded boat with a pointed bow and a wider stern. The shape was so clear that even from the sky, it stood out sharply against the surrounding rocky terrain. Measuring over 500 feet long, this strange formation was roughly the same size as the ark described in the Bible. The captain reported his find, and soon scientists, journalists, and curious onlookers began arriving at the site. The formation was named after Durupinar, and it quickly became a subject of intense debate. Was this natural rock shaped by chance? Or could it be the long-lost remains of Noah's Ark, buried under layers of earth and time? The very possibility stirred imaginations around the world. If true, it could be the greatest archaeological discovery in human history. But if false, it might simply be another strange quirk of nature in a region filled with unusual geology. As word spread, teams of researchers began to arrive from different countries, each hoping to unlock the truth behind this mysterious site. What lay beneath the surface of this silent hillside would soon become one of the most talked-about mysteries of modern times. The year was 1959. Captain İlhan Durupinar, a pilot with the Turkish army, was flying a routine mission over the eastern mountains of Turkey. As his plane soared over the rough landscape, something below caught his eye. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary ridge, but as he looked closer, he saw a shape that made him sit up straight in his seat. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Nestled in a remote valley near Mount Ararat was a formation that looked exactly like a giant boat. It wasn't a vague resemblance. The shape was clear and sharp, with smooth sides, a curved hull, and a pointed front, just like the bow of a ship. It appeared as though some enormous vessel had run aground and become trapped in the earth. The length of the formation was staggering, about 538 feet long. This was almost exactly the same size as the ark described in Genesis, which was said to be 300 cubits long. Captain Durupinar knew he had stumbled upon something extraordinary. He reported the discovery, and soon aerial photographs were sent to scientists and government officials. The images caused an immediate stir. The formation looked too perfect to be a simple accident of nature. Some experts thought it might be the first real physical evidence of Noah's Ark. As word spread, media outlets around the world picked up the story. The BBC sent a film crew to document the site. National Geographic dispatched photographers and journalists to climb the rugged hills and capture images of the strange formation. Newspapers ran headlines that hinted at the possibility that one of the Bible's most famous stories might have left a real mark on the earth. The world's attention turned toward this quiet corner of Turkey. Scientists, explorers, and religious leaders began to voice their opinions. Some were excited and hopeful, while others remained skeptical, cautioning that nature often creates shapes that resemble familiar objects. Still, the excitement was hard to contain. Local villagers soon joined the conversation, sharing stories passed down through generations. Some elders spoke of strange metal objects found in the area, claiming that their ancestors had uncovered iron rivets or tools half buried in the ground. Others described seeing unusual patterns in the rocks that looked like they had been shaped by human hands long ago. For the people who lived near the site, the idea that Noah's Ark might be resting in their own backyard was both thrilling and deeply meaningful. As researchers began to arrive to study the formation, a powerful sense of mystery settled over the valley. Could this really be the Ark? Or was it just an illusion created by nature's hand? The questions hung in the air, and for many, the only way to know for sure was to dig deeper. As excitement spread across the world, scientists from different countries made their way to the remote valley. The strange boat-shaped formation had become too intriguing to ignore. Teams of geologists, archaeologists, and researchers arrived with their equipment, determined to examine the site carefully and see if it could truly be the remains of Noah's Ark. Among the first to lead detailed investigations was Professor Faruk Kaya from Agri Ibrahim Chechen University in Turkey. Soft-spoken but deeply passionate, Kaya approached the site with a mixture of scientific caution and personal curiosity. Standing on top of the formation for the first time, he described the experience as surreal, as if he was walking along the spine of some enormous creature trapped beneath the soil. Working alongside Kaya was Andrew Jones, an American researcher who had dedicated years to the study of ancient structures. Jones brought a more skeptical but open-minded approach, insisting that any conclusions would have to be based on hard evidence. Together, the teams began their work, starting with basic surveys and mapping of the site. The dimensions of the formation continued to surprise even the most skeptical observers. Measuring roughly 538 feet in length, the mound closely matched the measurements given in the Bible. Genesis describes Noah's Ark as being 300 cubits long. When translated into modern units, this equals approximately 510 to 525 feet, depending on the exact length of the cubit. The formation's size fell right within this range, allowing for possible erosion or shift formation seemed to The more measurements the teams took, the more the similarities piled up. The formation's alignment and proportions appeared almost too perfect to dismiss outright. Yet some geologists remained wary, pointing out that natural processes can sometimes create surprises Despite these warnings, the excitement around the site continued to build. Each new measurement made the possibility seem more real. The teams carefully documented their findings, using aerial photography, hand-drawn maps, and detailed field notes to capture every feature of the formation. Skepticism still hung in the air, but the mood was shifting. What had started as a curiosity was becoming a serious scientific puzzle. Could the combination of precise measurements and striking shape really be a coincidence? Or was there something far more extraordinary hidden beneath the surface? For many on the team, standing on that silent hillside, the question was no longer whether something unusual lay beneath them. The real question had become, how far were they willing to go to find out the truth? With modern technology advancing rapidly, the stage was set for even deeper investigations that would soon uncover stunning new evidence. As the scientific teams continued their work, it became clear that simple measurements and photographs were not enough. The answers they sought lay hidden beneath the surface, buried under centuries of soil, rock, and debris. To truly see what was inside the formation, they needed technology that could look underground without disturbing the site. That is when they turned to advanced tools like ground-penetrating radar, resistivity scans, and 3D imaging. Ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, allowed the researchers to send signals deep into the earth and measure the echoes that bounced back. These echoes painted a picture of what lay beneath the ground, much like an ultrasound shows the inside of the human body. Alongside GPR, resistivity scans used electrical currents to detect different types of materials underground based on how they conducted electricity. Finally, 3D imaging software took all the data and turned it into detailed visual models of the hidden structure. When the first scans appeared on their screens, the scientists were stunned. Instead of the chaotic jumble of rock and mud they had expected from a natural formation, they saw patterns. Parallel lines ran along the length of the formation. Right angles formed clear, straight corners. There were distinct layers that looked like decks stacked one above the other. At the center ran a long corridor, flanked by what appeared to be side chambers or compartments. As researchers began to arrive to study the formation, a powerful sense of mystery settled over the valley. Could this really be the Ark? Or was it just an illusion created by nature's hand? The questions hung in the air, and for many, the only way to know for sure was to dig deeper. As excitement spread across the world, scientists from different countries made their way to the remote valley. The strange, boat-shaped formation had become too intriguing to ignore. Teams of geologists, archaeologists, and researchers arrived with their equipment, determined to examine the site carefully and see if it could truly be the remains of Noah's Ark. Among the first to lead detailed investigations was Professor Faruk Kaya from Agri Ibrahim Chechen University in Turkey. Soft-spoken but deeply passionate, Kaya approached the site with a mixture of scientific caution and personal curiosity. Standing on top of the formation for the first time, he described the experience as surreal, as if he was walking along the spine of some enormous creature trapped beneath the soil. Working alongside Kaya was Andrew Jones, an American researcher who had dedicated years to the study of ancient structures. Jones brought a more skeptical but open-minded approach, insisting that any conclusions would have to be based on hard evidence. Together, the teams began their work, starting with basic surveys and mapping of the site. The dimensions of the formation continued to surprise even the most skeptical observers. Measuring roughly 538 feet in length, the mound closely matched the measurements given in the Bible. Genesis describes Noah's Ark as being 300 cubits long. When translated into modern units, this equals approximately 510 to 525 feet, depending on the exact length of a cubit. The formation's size fell right within this range, allowing for possible erosion or shifts in the land over time. Even the width and height of the formation seemed to align with the biblical description. The more measurements the teams took, the more the similarities piled up. The formation's alignment and proportions appeared almost too perfect to dismiss outright. Yet some geologists remained wary, pointing out that natural processes can sometimes create surprising shapes that mimic man-made structures. Despite these warnings, the excitement around the site continued to build. Each new measurement made the possibility seem more real. The teams carefully documented their findings, using aerial photography, hand-drawn maps, and detailed field notes to capture every feature of the formation. Skepticism still hung in the air, but the mood was shifting. What had started as a curiosity was becoming a serious scientific puzzle. Could the combination of precise measurements and striking shape really be a coincidence? Or was there something far more extraordinary hidden beneath the surface? For many on the team, standing on that silent hillside, the question was no longer whether something unusual lay beneath them. The real question had become, how far were they willing to go to find out the truth? With modern technology advancing rapidly, the stage was set for even deeper investigations that would soon uncover stunning new evidence. As the scientific teams continued their work, it became clear that simple measurements and photographs were not enough. The answers they sought lay hidden beneath the surface, buried under centuries of soil, rock, and debris. To truly see what was inside the formation, they needed technology that could look underground without disturbing the site. That is when they turned to advanced tools like ground-penetrating radar, resistivity scans, and 3D imaging. Ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, allowed the researchers to send signals deep into the earth and measure the echoes that bounced back. These echoes painted a picture of what lay beneath the ground, much like an ultrasound shows the inside of the human body. Alongside GPR, resistivity scans used electrical currents to detect different types of materials underground based on how they conducted electricity. Finally, 3D imaging software took all the data and turned it into detailed visual models of the hidden structure. When the first scans appeared on their screens, the scientists were stunned. Instead of the chaotic jumble of rock and mud they had expected from a natural formation, they saw patterns. Parallel lines ran along the length of the formation. Right angles formed clear, straight corners. There were distinct layers that looked like decks stacked one above the other. At the center ran a long corridor, flanked by what appeared to be side chambers or compartments. Andrew Jones stared at the images, barely able to believe what he was seeing. "This is not what nature normally creates," he said quietly to his team. "The symmetry, the precision, the order. It's shocking." Professor Farouk Kaya nodded, equally amazed. "If I didn't know better, I'd say we were looking at the inside of a massive ship," he told a reporter from the Jerusalem Post. The most surprising aspect was how closely the features matched the biblical description of the Ark. According to Genesis, the ark had multiple decks and was divided into compartments to house animals. The radar scans revealed exactly that: multiple levels, rooms, and even what might have been a central stairway connecting the decks. The formations seemed to have been carefully constructed, not randomly shaped by wind, water, or earthquakes. Geologists on the team explained that such straight lines and sharp angles are extremely rare in natural geology. Nature tends to create curves, uneven layers, and chaotic shapes. But here, everything was clean and organized. The repeating patterns of decks and walls were simply not what anyone expected from a rock formation. Still, not everyone was ready to declare victory. Some scientists urged caution, reminding the team that unusual natural formations do exist and that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. We have to be careful not to jump to conclusions, one researcher warned. Just because something looks like a ship doesn't automatically make it Noah's Ark. But even the skeptics admitted that the data was highly unusual. The more scans they ran, the more detailed the internal structure appeared. The shape looked less like a pile of dirt and more like the skeleton of an ancient vessel frozen in time. "This looks man-made," Jones finally said. His words hung in the air, heavy with both excitement and uncertainty. It was impossible. On human imagination. The deeper they looked, the more the mystery deepened. But one thing was certain: this was no ordinary hill. While the radar and imaging scans revealed the formation's hidden shape, another kind of evidence was waiting to be uncovered right under the scientists' feet. The soil itself held secrets that might tell the story of what once existed here. The team began carefully collecting soil samples from different parts of the formation. They wanted to know if the earth contained chemical signs of something unnatural buried deep below. The first samples came from the center of the boat-shaped mound. As the scientists scooped up the rich, dark soil, they immediately noticed how different it looked from the dirt around it. Back in the lab, they ran tests to measure the levels of organic material, minerals, and acidity. The results were startling. Inside the formation, the soil contained nearly 3 times more organic material than samples taken from the surrounding land. This was not what anyone expected. In a normal rocky hillside, organic material would be minimal. But here, it suggested that something once alive, something organic, had decayed over time within the formation. Lead researcher Andrew Jones explained, "When wood breaks down over centuries, it leaves behind clear chemical markers. The high levels of organic material we are seeing suggest that large amounts of wood may have once been here, buried and slowly decaying." Even more revealing were the potassium levels. Potassium is a mineral released as wood and plant matter rot. In the soil from the formation, potassium levels were significantly higher than those found just a few meters away. The scientists also discovered that the soil inside the mound was far more acidic, with a lower pH than the neutral soil outside. This acidity is another signal of long-term organic decomposition. Professor Farouk Kaya shared his thoughts with the Jerusalem Post. The elevated potassium and lowered pH are clear signs that something once organic existed here for a long period of time. These are exactly the kinds of markers you would expect if massive amounts of wood were buried and decaying under this site. As the team dug deeper into the chemical analysis, they found something even more specific: lignin derivatives. Lignin is a complex organic compound found in wood that gives trees their strength. Over time, as wood breaks down, it leaves behind these chemical fingerprints. The presence of lignin derivatives in the soil strongly suggested that large wooden structures may have once existed inside the formation. Dr. Jessica Parks, a biogeochemist who examined the data, explained, "The presence of these lignin compounds points directly to decayed wood. This isn't just plant debris blowing in from nearby. This indicates substantial, buried wooden material." The chemical clues didn't stop there. Some soil layers contained marine sediments, including tiny shell fragments and traces of ancient algae. These findings hinted at the possibility that this area was once underwater, perhaps during a massive flood event. If true, it lined up closely with the biblical account of a worldwide flood that lifted the ark and eventually left it stranded as the waters receded. Every test seemed to bring the researchers closer to one haunting question. Had they found not just a strange rock formation, but the actual resting place of Noah's Ark? The combination of organic decay, chemical signatures, and marine evidence was hard to dismiss. Still, caution remained. The team knew that extraordinary claims require strong proof, yet the soil was speaking loudly, whispering of ancient wood, rotting beams, and perhaps even the story of survival told in the Bible. As the results came in, the mystery deepened, pulling the scientists into a discovery that was far more complex than any of them had expected. As more discoveries surfaced from the Durupanar site, the world outside the valley erupted into debate. What started as a quiet investigation in a remote part of Turkey had now captured global attention. Scientists, religious leaders, journalists, and ordinary people were now deeply divided over what the evidence truly meant. On one side stood those who believed the formation was likely the remains of Noah's Ark. The combination of the boat-like shape, the matching dimensions, the internal structures shown by the scans, and the chemical clues all seemed too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Researchers like Andrew Jones and Professor Farrokh Kaya argued that while more work was needed, the growing body of evidence strongly pointed toward a man-made origin. They saw the symmetry, the multiple decks, and the central corridor as impossible to explain through natural geology alone. But on the other side, strong voices of skepticism rose quickly. Dr. Lawrence Collins, a respected geologist, was among the most vocal critics. In interviews with Scientific American, he argued that the formation was nothing more than a natural synclinal basin shaped by tectonic forces and erosion. "The Earth can create remarkable shapes that fool the eye," he said. "Just because it looks like a ship doesn't mean it was ever a ship." Joining him was Dr. Elena Vasquez, a geobiologist who had studied similar formations in floodplains. She pointed out that high organic content and potassium levels could easily result from decayed plants or animal activity over thousands of years. "We cannot allow wishful thinking to override solid science," she warned. "The burden of proof is extremely high when claiming to have found something like Noah's Ark." As experts debated, social media platforms exploded with interest. Videos labeled "Proof of Noah's Ark Found" flooded TikTok, racking up millions of views within days. YouTube channels posted hour-long breakdowns of the radar scans. Some users overlaid the 3D models with verses from Genesis, declaring divine vindication. On the other side, skeptics flooded Reddit forums, posting detailed arguments and mocking the discovery with memes tagged #fakeboat. The History Channel aired a special episode featuring dramatic animations of ancient builders constructing the Ark, while National Geographic produced a more cautious documentary exploring both sides of the argument. Audiences around the world watched as scientists, theologians, and skeptics clashed on international news programs. Meanwhile, the site itself began drawing crowds. Tour buses rolled into the valley, carrying tourists eager to stand where they believed Noah's Ark might rest. Local vendors sold miniature Ark replicas and T-shirts proclaiming, "I walked where Noah walked." For the villagers, the attention brought both opportunity and frustration. The sudden influx of visitors brought much-needed income, but it also disrupted the peaceful life they had always known. "This was a quiet place once," said Emily Carahan, a local teacher. "Now strangers crowd our roads and argue about our stories. Some treat our history like a game." The mystery at Durupinar had grown into something far larger than a scientific debate. It had become a cultural battleground where faith, science, and human curiosity collided in full view of the world. Just when it seemed the mystery could not grow any deeper, the next round of scans revealed something that sent a chill through the team. Using even more advanced technology, the researchers probed further beneath the surface. What appeared on their screens was unlike anything they had expected. The ground-penetrating radar uncovered sealed chambers hidden within the formation. These were not simple voids caused by natural erosion. The chambers were arranged in a pattern that suggested intentional design. Central corridors split into side rooms, stacked across multiple levels. The scans painted an image of a complex internal structure, much like the decks and compartments described in the biblical account of Noah's Ark. Even more astonishing were the petrified beams. The radar signals bounced off long, straight objects that matched the size and shape of massive wooden planks. Over thousands of years, if wood had been buried under pressure and mineral-rich soil, it could fossilize, turning into stone, while still preserving its original shape. These straight, beam-like echoes added yet another layer of intrigue to the growing puzzle. But the most unexpected surprise came when legislative scans detected something unusual. Metallic anomalies buried deep within the chambers. The machines registered strong signals in specific spots, suggesting the presence of dense metallic objects. Could these be tools, fasteners, or even artifacts left behind? The scans could not identify the exact nature of the objects, but the readings were impossible to ignore. Andrew Jones addressed the findings with great caution. "We're not saying what these objects are," he told reporters. "We have to be very careful not to jump to conclusions." Public excitement soared. Across television, social media, and churches, people speculated about what might be sealed inside those chambers. Was this physical evidence of the Ark's cargo? Could it be ancient tools used by Noah's family? The lack of clear answers only fueled the wild imaginations of millions watching from afar. Religious scholars, many of whom had previously dismissed the Ark story as symbolic, were now being forced to reconsider their views. Rabbi David Wolper, writing in a major newspaper, admitted, "If this truly is what it appears to be, we may need to rethink how much of our sacred texts are metaphor and how much is actual preserved history." Creationist groups quickly claimed the findings as undeniable proof that the Bible was historically accurate. They flooded online platforms with statements declaring that science was finally catching up with Scripture. Meanwhile, skeptics pushed back just as strongly, warning that enthusiasm must not replace evidence. Dr. Elena Vasquez cautioned, "Until something is physically excavated and studied directly, these scans remain open to interpretation." The tension between belief and skepticism only grew. Every new discovery brought excitement, but also deeper questions. The sealed chambers and metallic echoes hinted that the greatest secrets of the formation were still buried, waiting for a truth no one yet fully understood. With public interest reaching a fever pitch, the Turkish government saw an opportunity. Officials announced they would fast-track new drilling permits, allowing researchers to drill deeper into the formation in hopes of uncovering definitive proof. The promise of uncovering one of the world's greatest archaeological treasures brought promises of global attention, tourism revenue, and national pride. However, the decision sparked immediate backlash from conservationists and international heritage organizations. UNESCO warned that deeper drilling could cause irreversible damage to the formation, especially if the site did turn out to be of great historical significance. Once you drill into something like this, you cannot undo the harm, said Dr. İpek Yılmaz, a heritage preservation expert. We must protect the site while we still don't fully understand what it holds. Despite the warnings, preparations for drilling moved forward. At the same time, religious groups began organizing ceremonies at the site. Imams led prayers, Christian groups held worship services, and visitors treated the mound like a sacred place. The blending of science, faith, and politics drew even more media attention. Cameras captured images of worshippers kneeling on the hillside while drilling machines stood ready nearby. News outlets framed the unfolding drama in stark terms. Some headlines called it the Battle for Noah's Ark. Others described it as a clash between science and faith, between discovery and preservation. The site had become much more than a scientific investigation. It was now a global stage where cultural, theological, and political forces collided. Turkish officials defended their decision. "This is our land, our history, and our opportunity," one government spokesperson said. "We have a duty to explore it fully." As the drills prepared to bite into the ancient soil, the world held its breath. Scientists, believers, skeptics, and curious onlookers waited anxiously to see what the earth would reveal next. Every new hole drilled into the hillside carried the weight of hope, fear, and controversy as the mystery of Durupınar moved closer to its next chapter. As the evidence piled up, a chilling thought crept into the minds of scientists, theologians, and historians alike. What if this really was Noah's Ark? What if the ancient story was not just a symbol, but a preserved record of a real event? If proven true, the implications would be enormous. The biblical account of a global flood has long been treated by many scholars as a myth or a moral lesson rather than historical fact. But a physical ark buried in Turkey would suggest that a massive flood did indeed occur, one powerful enough to wipe out entire civilizations. It would force the scientific community to re-examine existing theories about ancient history, climate patterns, and the timeline of human civilization itself. Such a discovery would not only validate the story of Noah, but also raise questions about what other ancient texts might hold hidden truths. Were these old scriptures recording real events in coded language, preserving knowledge long dismissed as legend? Some scholars began to wonder whether sacred writings contained more historical fact than previously believed, wrapped in metaphor to pass through generations. Religious leaders found themselves facing deep questions. If this was the Ark, what did it mean for their faith? For some, it was a confirmation of divine truth. For others, it challenged long-held beliefs about how much of Scripture was symbolic versus literal. Rabbi David Wolpe admitted, "If this is real, then parts of our sacred texts may not just be spiritual guidance, but direct records of ancient history." Scientists were equally unsettled. A discovery of this scale could rewrite textbooks, upend theories, and change the way humanity understands its own origins. Evolutionary timelines, geological assumptions, and archaeological records might all need to be revised in light of a verified global flood. For many, the idea was thrilling. For others, it was terrifying. The possibility that the Bible held preserved historical codes, that ancient people recorded events modern science has overlooked, shook both academic and religious foundations. As debate raged on, the true weight of what lay beneath the Durupinar Formation began to sink in. This was no longer just about an ancient ship. It was about everything humanity thought it knew about its past. And the possibility that one buried vessel could rewrite history filled the world with both wonder and dread. Even with all the advanced technology, many of the formation's secrets remain locked deep underground. The sealed chambers, the petrified beams, and the metallic echoes are only glimpses of what might lie beneath. So far, the scans have painted a picture, but no one has yet touched or seen what is truly inside. More chambers are suspected. The deeper the scans go, the more complex the formation appears. Some corridors remain unreachable. The hollow spaces are there, but their contents remain hidden behind tons of earth and stone. Technology can see outlines, shapes, and densities, but it cannot tell the full story. For that, someone would have to break through the layers and open what has been sealed for thousands of years. And that is where the greatest tension lies. What if something truly world-changing waits inside? What if the chambers hold artifacts, writings, or remains that confirm a story long dismissed as impossible? Or what if breaking into these ancient chambers destroys the very evidence that could answer humanity's oldest questions? The scientists stand at the edge of a discovery that could transform everything. They also face the risk of damaging a site that has survived for millennia. Every choice now carries enormous weight. The debate over whether to proceed has become more than just a scientific question. It is a test of caution, faith, ambition, and responsibility. Around the world, millions watch and wonder. Some hope for final proof of Noah's Ark. Others fear that even if such proof is found, it will divide rather than unite, raising new conflicts between science, religion, and politics. As the sun sets over Mount Ararat, casting long shadows across the valley, the mystery remains. The mound is silent, but its presence grows louder with each passing day. What lies beneath may hold answers that reach far beyond the past. Because some mysteries are not just about what came before. They confront us with who we are now and who we dare to become if ancient truth rises from the earth.